order. Hi, everybody. We're feeling significantly outnumbered on this side of the table. Here. This is below third, above third. All right, so the mayor is ill. She has two sick kids at home, so she's not going to be joining us tonight. Sends her regrets and her regards. So everybody got my email from this morning, in which I laid out our objective or intended objective for tonight, which is first and foremost to put everybody on a path forward, leaving here tonight for work to be done over the next month, and then beyond that, the next 90 days. We are in the 90-day stretch to the point where we submit our strategic investment plan to the state, which includes all the determined projects and the community write-up and the community profile, all that stuff. So I want to make sure we leave here tonight knowing the timeline, knowing the work product that we're going to be working on together. After tonight, our next LPC meeting is not for a month. We don't meet until the 23rd of January. So that doesn't mean we don't have work to do, however, in the interim. So Steve's going to walk us through dates and deliverables, and tonight you'll leave with a couple of documents. We have copies, right, of one or two of the round one?
We've got just links to
it, okay. So you'll leave with links to some information from round one DRI applications. I asked the state team to provide us with examples of what other DRI award communities produced through their LPC process so that we could all conceptualize and formalize the thinking around what we're putting together and what all our time is being spent on. So we'll talk about that. And then we're going to go over very briefly the summary of the public meeting that was held on the 7th. Briefly go over where we are on goals and strategies, and that documentation was all sent out earlier. Everybody's seen it, you've all been working on it. It hasn't changed a whole lot since the last conversation. And then we'll spend a little time going through the project profiles of what's in the queue currently. We have, as usual, a 2-hour time frame, but if we can be expeditious and get through some of the stuff, we may not need to use all that time. So, does anybody have questions about any of that? Yes?
Steve might be the best one for this. When we get to the point where we submit a menu of projects that we are endorsing, how long does that remain on the desk at the state level?
They were, I don't know if there's not a specific time, and Jamie could answer it more fully if he wants to, but they came fairly quickly, within months after the completion of the plan last year. Not all, everything, but projects get selected from the DRIs very quickly.
All right, if there are no other questions about the agenda, I'll turn it over to Steve. We'll start with timeline for DRI and go from there.
Yep, thank you very much. Actually, obviously, we just went through the agenda. The only piece I want to add to this is, much like the last LPC meeting, the majority of the time I want to spend working in input. We'll actually switch off from the presentation, go to a spreadsheet, and we've got updates, or we're going to go through the project profiles. It's a real opportunity for the committee to talk about them, and I'll give more direction at that stage. Again, I'm going to jump through these. Everyone as well. These are all put up on the website. That's DRI.org. But we're moving fast through these very quickly. We're already handing in deliverables. I'm going to just jump real quick because I want to talk about those deliverables on the next slide. We are ending the phase where projects are being identified. Again, from the last meeting, January 3rd is when we're essentially saying all new projects need to be submitted to us, to Steve Carney, steve.carney@stanzec.com. And then we begin, January is the crunch period of assessing all of these projects, and then we come back and make the recommendations.
Steve, can I pause you for one moment? I just want to remind everybody that tomorrow
Thank you. Tomorrow from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. I am at the Chamber Building, 1 North Front Street. If people have project ideas or project forms they're filling out, I am available. You can walk in. The only thing I will say is I have some meetings that have tentatively been scheduled, so we may get people coming on top of each other. That's okay. We'll work through all of that so anyone can come in to it. Tomorrow, 1 p.m., 9 to 1 p.m.
And that's not just LPC, that is That's members of the community, anybody who has a potential project that they want to better understand how it fits.
Yes.
So please spread the word if you know other people who aren't.
At the Chamber Building, 1 North Front Street.
Are you available if people, that those hours don't work for people to schedule outside of that?
I will likely be able to do phone calls as well outside. I will say, and hopefully other people as well, we are, specifically our company, we're off during the holiday week, so that may be difficult. If you've got an issue at that point, get in touch with the planning chair, and they will figure out how to reach out.
Because I'm not off.
I don't think I can hide completely.
Steve, before you jump in, Peter, I just looked up quickly Glens Falls, which is the other DRI for DREDC, and the local LPC there approved that around the first week of March, and the state came back with the approved plan in May. So that falls in line with what Steve was saying.
So I'll get into some more detail, but want to really talk about where we're at. We talked about this time frame. Again, January 3rd, the project forms are due, and then we really need to start our work. So that's a critical time frame. We've been talking about that for a few weeks. Keep spreading that word. The subcommittee final reports on January 12th. I will go through, the Highline strategies. Phil's actually going to give you an example of some of the previous, goals and strategies to give you a sense, the planning committee a sense, actually of how much work you've done, but also, really, where we need to get to. And I think you're already pretty much there. With that said, I wanted to give every subcommittee an opportunity, and not just over Christmas, to meet one more time. But as of January 12th, that is really wrapped up, and we want to make sure it's final. The January 17th, I'm giving another due date, and Matthew may ask if a committee wants to group, and we can decide to talk about this either right now or later. The downtown profile, it's really, we always call it the existing conditions analysis typically in a planning report. It's, it's what's going on in demographics, it's where the market data that we're pulling together is all residing. And that profile is a specific deliverable, and we would like to open that up, and we're going to send it out refined with a little bit more information tomorrow or possibly Wednesday to this group. That is another item that we would really appreciate feedback on, and particularly if a group wants to come together who's real interested in that, that would be very helpful. But again, I'm giving a due date of January 17th. From that point, we're going to be in report mode, pulling this stuff together. You still have another chance, but for that, do you want to mention?
Yeah, so why don't we just talk about this for a moment, because I think the downtown profile becomes sort of the narrative component of the application, right? To the state, helps the application reinforce the projects and give that context to the economic need, the socio-economic need, whatever the individual component parts are that support the projects. So every one of us is expected to review it and opine and provide feedback, particularly to your subject matter areas where you have expertise, to make sure that that profile fully encompasses the area of interest that you have, or interests, plural, if you have multiple. So individually, we're all being asked to look at that. So I'm going to emphasize that, and that'll be a take-home, that'll be a homework assignment. You'll have until the 17th to do that, and you can send feedback and track changes, or scribble your notes and send them, or however you want to do it. But what I thought might be a useful exercise is if we took a group of 4 people, perhaps one person from each of the 4 subcommittees to represent each of those areas, to make a small working group that can be the review committee, and aggregate comments and feedback and make sure that we're all singing from the same song sheet. Does that recommendation sit well with folks, or the folks who would want to volunteer to do that? I see a head nodding over there. Okay. I see another head nodding. So Tony's happy to do that. So
5 committees.
are there 5? Oh, there are 5. All right. Sorry, I didn't cut it short. I couldn't remember. So are there any other volunteers? It doesn't have to be exclusive to each of the working groups, but remind me your name. Sorry, I was thinking Bob. I knew it's not Bob. All right. Anybody else? Randall. All right, and I'll put myself on that group as well. So, all right. I don't think we have to have any other conversation about that at this point, but I appreciate that. Thank you.
January 16th, that's a deadline for us to get to you. We're going to be working on the spreadsheet, so you'll become familiar with it starting tonight. Once we've got all the projects in January, again, we're working on feasibility. We're going to update the spreadsheet with what we're learning on feasibility. Just take one quick step back. We'll be talking about all of the projects tonight. We're not prioritizing projects. They're still coming in. This isn't the right time to prioritize any projects right now. But, by the end of January, we are identifying, projects that we believe should be the priority project. And that is a planning committee will work through and help us finalize that. So that is something. So when we need to get that to you as quick as we can. January 16th, again, it won't be finished, but there'll be more. You'll see it evolve into, here's comments, into here's likely feasibility. Next stage is the, priority recommendations.
Is that going to be in the same format as what was distributed today to everybody, just evolving with addition of new projects?
It will be.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely.
All right.
And so, and again, this is a working document. If you want to change it, we're open to that. Really, it's just a matter of, you really want to track that information.
So maybe between now and the 3rd, when the deadline comes in, you're going to stack up the next list of projects that go on that. If anybody has comments that they want to get to you in advance, they can start to do that, because I did send that around to everybody this morning.
Yep, absolutely. I was going to say when we actually pull it up, but the fact of the matter is we're going to go through each project tonight. If you've looked at it, you'll see there's an LPC comments box. I've actually included a new column with your Stantec, what we're beginning to understand and look at. But after tonight, one of your homework assignments will be, we're going to discuss it. But if there's additional information, ideas, or comments that you come up with in the next week or so, particularly in terms of you should identify this person, or this is something that's more important, etc. Everyone on the subcommittee can work and put their comments into it. Hit save as, last name, send it back to me. So this is truly a working document for everybody. And again, if you don't like spreadsheets, I can send it as a PDF and you can handwrite. You can send me an email identifying projects, comments, and I put it in. But it becomes a record of all of this. So that is, again, and all of that information will go back out from our standpoint to you on the 16th. January 23rd, we are at the point where we're making these priority recommendations. You as the planning committee are confirming that with us. It won't be finalized on the 23rd, but you'll certainly get very close. And then February, we come back and we prepare for the public meeting. All of these, DRI projects get presented back to the community for their opportunity to weigh in, comment on. And then we go into full-on plan development mode. And Phil's going to walk you through that actually right after this slide. And, and that's an important point. And then by the end of February, we essentially, into March, we'll have a draft plan to go in. We get the comments back. Each section of that, the planning committee also has a chance to weigh on, as does the Department of State. And then we need to finalize that plan and get that into Department of State by the end of March. Sure.
When we first started writing strategies, there was talk about strategies functioning as a kind of checklist. In addition to having a project feasibility spreadsheet, is there some thing for measuring projects alongside strategies, like that kind of checklist that was discussed, or is that?
We can expand that, and actually what we would do is, it's a good idea actually, once we finalize the strategies as of January 12th, I will then do a little more detailed spreadsheet. It would be a nice thing just to add to it. As we measure, identify projects, we can hit what strategies are in. As it stands right now, for anyone who looked at the spreadsheet, we just have the goal, top line goals. And it's really just, again, a way we can argue what goals these are hitting. In many cases, there are multiple. But it's a way just to look at it. That takes it to the next level, which we can do once they're finalized.
So can you clarify between the 23rd and the 8th of February? So we have our project prioritization, so we're going to go through and for lack of a better term, we're going to rank them, but prioritize the projects. And then the public meeting is to review those final projects and solicit feedback from the public?
Every meeting where the public comes to, they can provide input, but and it'll get weighed into this. But it's essentially, that is an opportunity, for the public to see where we're at. In a sense, the public's invited to these planning committee meetings, but for those who aren't coming to this, but are coming to the public meeting, they are going to see what was discussed at that, and it's up there. So
not to make it difficult, but At what point does the public get to weigh in on the prioritization of projects if they didn't attend December 7th and that couldn't have covered everything because all the projects weren't in? Is there an opportunity or a format through which the public can engage and provide us their feedback before the 8th so that we can then say, okay, here's our prioritization, here's the feedback, now we're taking both pieces and we're putting it together for the final package?
I mean, to do that, you essentially have to hold in probably around the 17th or the 16th. I mean, we could do it earlier, and we could work as, planning committee, getting and updating what was presented in December. If it would give additional information, it just has to be understood that we're also at the same time assessing the feasibility of those projects.
Yeah, so I think you put the caveat out there in front of all that, but I want to make sure we don't overlook that opportunity for the public to engage, and it doesn't have to be at a meeting, it could be in other formats. So we don't necessarily talk about it right now, but I'd like to have some conversation about how we do that.
That could be good with
What other folks say.
the board. I mean, again, maybe it's we send it out and it goes to the library, it goes to places where the community can view all the contracts. Right, that would probably make more sense so there's not one specific meeting.
Yeah.
But it's out there.
Yeah, make it sort of a 2-week window, maybe it can be online and in a physical place. I mean, I think we need to talk about
That's a great idea, and so we can actually get that out there. Good. Okay. And right from that, and I'll say for Phil, because I'm sensitive to anyone who was at the last public meeting and some of those yellow written words in the slides. These are pulled directly from you're not expected to read these. Phil's going to talk them through. So don't try anymore.
Don't strain your eyes that hard. What we wanted to do was take a look at 2 of the final DRI reports that were submitted in round 1. This first one, Oswego, is one of 3 cities that Steve and I worked in, and then we're presenting another one that another consultant team worked on as well, just to begin to get a sense of what the final product is going to look like in late February. All of these are also available online that anybody can look at, so I'd encourage the planning committee, the public, to take a look at some of those previous reports, just to kind of see how other communities have done this. You Google New York State DRI, that should lead to the main page, and then down in the bottom corner there's a link to the round 1 cities, and that's where you can find all of this information online to take a closer look at it. And for the planning committee, we'll send around a link to that so you can look at those reports. So this first slide is just looking at the table of contents, kind of the organization of the final plan, which is called the Strategic Investment Plan. It's 2 main pieces. The first part 1, is the Downtown Vision Plan, which is primarily the downtown profile that Matthew was talking about. It's kind of setting the stage for here's where Hudson is today, here are some of the issues, here are some of the strengths that we're trying to build on. And then the second part is the actual strategic investment plan, which is setting out the goals, the strategies, and here are the priority projects that the committee and the public have identified to be recommended for DRI funding. In the downtown profile and assessment, it's looking at things like the physical conditions, streets, sidewalks, parks, things like that. How are they maintained today? Transportation networks, looking at the market analyses, so that would be the retail market that was presented at the last planning committee, looking at significant commercial and retail uses, significant employers in the area, housing conditions, looking at vacant and underutilized land, environmental constraints, if there are properties that have contamination issues that we're aware of, that will be part of that. And then the regulatory framework, which is zoning, land use. And finally, looking back at other plans that have been done recently, we're not doing this process in a vacuum. There's been a lot of work done here already, so we've looked back at those previous plans and kind of highlighted some of the themes that we're carrying through into the DRI. This is an example from Oswego of the 4 goals that they had. Strengthen the vibrancy of the downtown core, connect downtown to the waterfront, so you might sound kind of familiar, retain and grow businesses, and increase downtown residential living. So those were the 4 goals that were very important in Oswego. Each of those had a number of strategies beneath those.
And I just want to jump in right on that one.
Sure.
Look at that planning committee. We're actually not far from that. We're more detailed than they are. So when we get to our, what I like, there's a simplicity to this. It's fairly top line. Let's think about that when we're looking at our goals and strategies and how we might want to do that. Different blocks.
This is another two-page spread from the report, just graphically showing how we laid this out, showing a couple of project examples under each of those goals to illustrate them a little better. And then the final list of priority projects, there were 23 projects in Oswego recommended for DRI funding. It was a total ask of about 17.6 million. So those, each of those projects then submitted an application to the Department of State in that March timeframe, and then in May and in June, on a kind of a rolling basis, the final award announcements were made, which are the set of starred projects here, which I believe were 12 of those 23, which added up to the 9.7 million. So that's the same process that will be repeated here in Hudson. And then Jamaica was another one of the round one cities. This was done by a different consultant team, but just to give you a sense of how different format of this table of contents is all the same. The Part 1 Vision Plan, Part 2 Strategic Investment Plan. There they had 3 goals for the DRI: expand career opportunities and strengthen career pathways, activate downtown through programming and marketing, and connect major centers of activity. So to them, those were their 3 high-level goals, and they had, in their case, they actually had just 4 overall strategies. So across all 3 of those goals, they had 4 strategies: setting the stage for local industry growth, prepare the local workforce for sustainable careers, create inviting gateways to downtown, and draw residents and visitors to the downtown core. So those were the metrics then that they compared their projects against to prioritize them. And in Jamaica, there were 10 projects that they recommended for DRI funding. It's a total of just over 16 million. And then on the second table here, which we'll also have in Hudson, are the projects that were not recommended for DRI funding, but are included in the plan and could be funded through other sources. So that could be a CFA application, could be a direct application to Department of Transportation, other state funding sources. So all of the ideas that we're getting in this process will be included in the plan. Some of those will be recommended for DRI funding, others will be kept in the plan and then can be submitted for other funding sources. So that way all of the ideas we're getting are captured here. Just a matter of DRI priority or kind of a second priority, or they may just be better suited for a different funding source.
All right, thank you, Bill. Okay, now a quick recap of the meeting, just a little over a week ago. Again, a good showing of the community, not quite as many as the first meeting, but still nonetheless strong. What we were doing, for anyone who was not at that meeting, we just wanted to, again, we always give the updates. We wanted to confirm the vision. These are steps that are being completed. Reviewed the priorities, and again, was trying to really connect the community's priorities and kick off into the goals and strategies being developed. We updated the retail market. We did an update on the retail market analysis. We did a housing overview because that has just been so important to everyone in the community. And then we looked at the goals and strategies. But really, again, we had the community start to walk through every project that has been identified to date, and them all on board, and to give us their assessment of what was to them the most important. I always put in a caveat on this because, again, public meetings are public meetings. Sometimes a big group of people come, sometimes small, sometimes a certain constituency comes, sometimes others. This is not science-based. We're just trying to get a helpful taste of what the community is looking for. And again, we got some. So with that ranking, I would say, we've got one, the North Bay Regeneration, had the highest. I also had a lot of people who were putting their points on that one. What I think is important too is equally high and spread across a lot of what we're talking about was the improved pedestrian and vehicular circulation, the streetscape improvement projects, all up there as top priorities. These public improvements versus other ones, and the colors aren't coming up as strong on this, it was pretty widespread. So just, in terms of the big ones that came up, again, public pier always is ranking high, community food hub, the makerspace business incubator, the citywide Wi-Fi, Dunn Warehouse again is a strong one. Connecting to the Empire State Trails and sidewalk connections, strong. Silica, strong. Promenade Park always comes in at a strong one. Community food wasting, processing, and then the CAS mix site and warehouse facade improvements, digitized expansion, and the maker space. And again, that's a good example where there's potentially multiple ideas coming together on this question.
Now, DigiFab, for instance, and some of the Silica projects have been funded by regional economic development grants. Do they still rank as high for us in the DRI process?
I have those announcements in my spreadsheet. It's a great example of how this is constantly a changing process. I spoke, with Sarah Crowell earlier. Actually, Matthew, would you want to as the chair?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So, setting aside the question of priority, because that's not for us to establish just yet, because we don't want to look at everything. They were initial project proposals in the DRI application that got us to this point, and they remain viable projects in that they were identified as such and awarded funding. What we don't know yet is whether or not they have a gap in funding that still requires DRI to fill the balance and make the project work on the whole. So what we've asked each of the applicants to do just today is go back and rework their project application proposals to us to identify the gap, if there is any, and come back. And what that'll ostensibly do is free up money that had previously been tagged for those projects in the DRI for other things. Whether or not, again, to end where I started, whether they're a priority, that's for us to decide after January 3rd when we have the whole list together and we see where everything fits. It may be a priority from the standpoint that in order for that project to be completed with the first source of funding, it needs the second source to make it work, otherwise it falls apart. Those are things that we're going to have to think about and when. So.
And you'll share those gaps if there are any with the LPCAs?
Yeah, those will be, it's incumbent upon them to apply and you see that project profile update before the 3rd of January. So yes, that'll be part of what we review. Yes.
Presumably, when they put that in initially, they identified what they needed.
Right, and they knew they were going in for the CFA at that time as well, but they had no guarantee that they'd win in a statewide challenge of funds.
Yeah.
Now that they're on the other side.
I'm just making the point that I understand what you're saying. I understand the point of giving them an identity, an opportunity to identify a gap. But presumably, when they identified their need at the get-go, they put a number on that of what they needed from this source to make it work. Not knowing or expecting this other source of funding.
Yeah, I don't know, I mean, I defer to Sheena because she knows the specifics better. I don't know the project applications well enough to speak to the numbers, where they were for one application versus ours, but...
Just speaking to the issue of fairness and equity and everybody having a shot.
Right. Did you have something?
No, I just said that presumably the financial stack would be in the document, so it would be pretty easy to evaluate. And what they would have identified more than one source of funding to complete their project, right?
Yeah, and it could have been that they required CFA and USDA and a bank loan, and who knows, a lot of things could change for any project applicant from the time that they started in the DRI to today. So, but it's incumbent upon them to tell us where they stand and not us to divine from their original submission. So, I guess that's my point, right? So. Okay.
I just wanted to, go into the next. There's actually 3 slides of these. Yeah, something that also occurred were write-in ideas. We had a final board. Because again, we're not finished. We want the community to also weigh in. And I thought, some of these ideas were the Hudson Youth Works Hub, public swimming pool. Very difficult thing, but that came in. And again, got votes, which was great. So people were voting on this board. Heated bus shelters. All of these community ideas are still coming in, and so they're still in here. Again, we got to work on them. We need, help, in terms of finding the owners. That's a LTC comment, as well as anyone from the community here. And another one, and it was different. Skate park. Some of these other ideas were coming in and getting voted on. And so these are what we're looking at, all those priorities. So it's another example too, where ideas may be coming together, and again, just because we don't get them that far doesn't mean they're not important and part of this. But the more that we can get is great. So at any rate, we had a wide representation. Another example on this where, this is one piece to many pieces that go into, looking at, developing priorities. You're getting some of these potential properties ready for housing, and which would be mixed income housing. To not get that many stars, and I know it's a community priority, so sometimes a picture doesn't show you, and it doesn't get people excited, but it's an idea that we've heard from another meeting that is important. So just as an example of how we take this information. But nonetheless, it's good and helpful for us. Okay, so now we're back to goals and strategies. I'm going to try hard not to spend too much time on these,
But
but
before you move into that, are there any follow-up questions on the public meeting?
Sorry, I do have a question, and I think this comes up every time, I'm just trying to understand when the community prioritization gets sent to the state. And then I know projects all get vetted in terms of feasibility and viability, and I'm just wondering if there's anything more you can tell us about what that process is in those 2 months. What is that?
it is, I'll take probably one that's most shared, and I've probably used it before, but it's important to give you a good example. Public infrastructure, public realm, streetscape.
But I mean, what are they that is required.
Right, so that's a huge community priority. And I've made that comment to the Department of State on a number of occasions on our calls. That also doesn't come, it's different than a private development or even a not-for-profit development. In other words, the leverage is a community benefit is the major leverage on that because everybody within the community shares. That's a huge community benefit. Community benefit can also occur on a smaller not-for-profit project, the greenhouse or other ones. But again, with that, it's not the entire community. So what are the other leverage items, and particularly with those who are probably looking at funding, grant or otherwise? And then really, as we've said with all of these projects, they have to have a capable owner who can implement. And they need to be able to prove that through the financing that they have. It can't be a grant that's a potential grant in 2018. That's good, that gets it in, but that's not a guarantee. That's not something the Department of State would say, so that just essentially would then say it's going in, it's going to be stronger for the next piece. So it needs to be, I'm taking Crystal on the state team. We're moving in January from really good ideas to solid projects with ours. And that's critical.
So is there a gap or a potential gap between community input and the analysis and evaluation and recommendation of the LPC
They're all being brought in.
together? And are they weighted identically or are they weighted differently?
There's no specific weighting. And, we discussed that right from the very beginning.
I just wanted to remind.
Absolutely, thank you. It's every project's going to be judged on its merits. And again, but if it's something that the community, I think the peer is another great example. This community has said peer, peer, peer. I think we'd be in trouble if a peer is not a priority project in this. And then how we get that done.
That's peer pressure.
That's peer pressure.
I think we need to spend some time on this because going back to the earlier part of our agenda tonight, there are 2 bullets that I think were really kind of just glossed over, but I think the people sitting around this table need some definition and some content on, which is define LPC members' responsibilities. Prioritizing potential projects comes up as the first bullet. I think this is something that we as an LPC need to be really comfortable with the process and also comfortable with the outcome. I don't think we can gloss over it. Our next meeting is in January where we're actually doing this, and we're not all going to see each other until then.
Right. You're absolutely right. So one of the tasks ahead of us between the 3rd and the 16th, 17th, what's the date that you want us to look at the spreadsheet and give you?
It gives the 7.
Right. So we're each expected to look at that spreadsheet to provide our feedback on the projects, right? To help in prioritizing. So rather than go quiet for a whole month, we'll be expected between the 3rd and the 16th to individually look at that spreadsheet, provide our feedback on the individual project profiles, give those to Steve by the 16th or the 17th, and then come back together on the 23rd for us to all sit around together and say, okay, here's the synthesis of all those comments, here's where everything sits, and then as a group, look through that list to help prioritize it. Am I understanding that and explaining that?
I think that's correct. And at the same time, what we're doing, which, and this is on our end, our job as a consultant is to come to you with recommendations for what should be the priority projects. And so, again, it could have the highest level of community support, but if we don't see a way of that coming together, it's still in there, but it's not going to be the priority. We'll tell you, the committee, that. And it's sensitive. This is a sensitive because some of these are going to not get a priority ranking from our assessment, and then you, as the committee, need to confirm and/or push back on us at that stage, and we'll try, but, you know, we're really working on it. I mean, we're just, again, we have to make sure we can do it.
So-
It's pretty simple.
I see this as a three-legged stool, if you will, right? You've got the LPC, you've got the consultants, and you've got the public, who all have to look at that list of projects post-January 3rd, provide feedback. We're going to provide individual feedback and then collectively sit together and say, here's our collective prioritization of that list. We're going to weigh some of the recommendations that you all give us, and are they going to come in before the 23rd so we have time?
They will be on that. When we send back that spreadsheet, we'll be looking at what's looking more and more feasible. We'll give it a rating, we'll line through, you know, some type of feasibility rating, because that's what we're trying to do.
So on the 4th or the 5th, let's say, after you've gotten the last project submission on the 3rd, you will have ranked that, so between, let's say, the 5th and the 23rd, or the 16th, when we have to give you feedback?
We'll get as close as we can within that
Okay.
timeframe, absolutely. And there are just going to be some holes that we're still trying to fill. We will identify holes, that's part of what tonight's going to be about.
Right.
Does the ranking have to be linear, or can the ranking be in groups? In other words, if there are 15 projects and you're doing the feasibility scrub, so that it nods to the community, it nods to the fact that the 20-person committee, you know, might be a little easier to form consensus if you had a group. Like, here's a group of 7 that are feasible. Here's a group of 7 that are possible but less feasible, so that there could be some ability to have some discussion and for us to look at a list of.
We could resort it that way. And again, we also got to always keep in mind, I mean, we're working hard to figure out what's the most feasible and lining up against the strategies, the community's priorities, and to come out with those prioritization. We're not limited, meaning it's not, we're cutting it off at the 10 million plan. That's what we've been saying all along too. If it hits, you know, community priority, it's strong, it can be accomplished, implemented, and the planning committee as well thinks this aligns with what we're trying to do with the Bridge District, it's in. And if it comes up to 20 million, you know, so be it. Ultimately, you know, it's the state that will identify the awarded projects after the plan is completed. And that will then ultimately end up at that $9.7 million. So, but it's all, we're trying to get to the highest priority, the most likely projects to be, you know, implemented, and hit all of the community's goals, and it can be achieved. That's our job, and your job to say, yes, we agree, and work with it.
I think there was those rankings next month. Is there going to be using the monetary amounts requested in the initial application, or is there a feasibility study that's going to be included in terms of, say, the dock we decide is priority number 1, but it's only feasible if we use 2 million or 4 million or 6 million of our 10 million versus whatever was in the thing at $250,000.
That's a great comment, and that's exactly right. One of our consultant team members is looking at, you know, also the timeline of the job to help do permitting and all of those issues, as well as what is the cost that we're really looking at. Likely will be higher than the
Will that priority ranking go up or down based on
You need to
cost?
make that decision. That's a great example of a decision this committee is going to make. How important is this? Is the ask gets too higher? We have to get it in, and we've got to find other funding to really make this work. That's a great example. I know Jamie, right behind you, wants to say something as well. But yes, those numbers are likely to change from what the application, and that's what our consultant is doing right now, pricing out these projects.
So real quickly, just get a sense point earlier. The idea that you will be recommending a group of projects that are your strongest projects, so to say, is going to be the best way to go. This is compared to, this is our number 1 priority, number 2, and going in linear fashion, as you said. If you have a cluster of projects, say that these are all strong projects, we endorse all of these, this is the way we want to go. That way, when it gets to the final vetting, so to say, then you'll be comfortable with all those projects being advanced, based on leveraging what the cost is and how the numbers shake out. But you will say, these 8 projects are our strongest candidates, and this is where we want to put our efforts.
And also how they fit together, right? To make the whole picture.
It's just hard to respond to like a, well, there's 1, 2, 3, you know,
Right.
it's kind of.
Putting it together, theoretically.
My understanding is that it's a high priority at DOS for us to leverage the 10 million, so we end up with let's say $60 million. Is there some threshold number that we got to get to make DOS happy?
No.
Okay.
The more the better, but there's no threshold.
So I have a question. Is there a mechanism for dialogue if an application looks strong, but would be stronger if it could partner with or add something? Or are the applications fine? Do we have a way to do?
We're working through that right now. In fact, that's a conversation we're going to have in 20 minutes.
Okay, sorry to get ahead.
No, not at all. It's good. It's a good point.
I just had a quick question going back to the timeline. Subcommittee final reports are due on January 12th. Is part of the subcommittee's charge to look at say the final list of projects that come in and vis-a-vis each subcommittee comment on them? What are those final
No,
reports?
in fact, that's every subcommittee has been sending in draft reports, if you will, for their goals and strategies. It's just related to the goals and strategies.
Okay, so we don't.
Exactly what we're talking about right now.
So, and they're going to go into the written strategic investment plan, as you saw in the example, right? So they're going to be written out, so very clearly established as a guideline. And then they're going to help us in prioritizing projects, right? And so once each subcommittee has determined what their final set of goals and strategies are, by the 12th, when we regroup on the 23rd, that's additional framework around which we have
Okay, so
fit those together.
we don't use our goals and strategies as a lens to look at the projects and then.
Well, you can individually, but not as a whole subcommittee. You're not expected to meet as a subcommittee and look at all of the projects together. Individually, you can do that. But then when we meet again, and this is just my sense of it, so if anybody has other suggestions, when we meet again on the 23rd, we're collectively using all of those goals and strategies to look at everything as part of the weighting of priority in that list. Right now.
And I envision too, the work of the subcommittees will all, be pulled together as an appendix to the final plan. And we will have more of the high-level findings of the subcommittees as the goals and strategies. And it's a perfect segue into what's on the screen right now. So what I want to do is just spend, just a few minutes on each goal. I'm going to read through the strategies, and to exactly, Michael, your point, I envision we are going to strengthen. You'll see in some places where we're starting to change words. I envision a pretty concise set of strategies. I will say one thing about the work, which is great, but I want to try to, in the final round as the subcommittees come together, is to pull some of their strategies out of a project-specific sort of piece, and you'll see that as we go into these, and more of sort of a strategy from which some of these projects can identify, or multiple strategies can support a single project, and we'll see that. So transportation connectivity. Again, I'll read through these, just safe and ready access of all types of transportation, allowing everyone to easily reach and connect within all of the district's assets and the community as a whole. I think transportation, they've already done a revised version and sent it to me. And so this has been worked through, and I think it's a good one place to start. Improve circulation south of Cross Street, prioritize complete street redesign of streets within Bridge District, improve public transportation options, make upgrade rail crossings safe, investigate the potential for relocation of CSX truck crossing further south, improve Second Street stairs and other pedestrian connections. That's an example where it's getting into a specific project. It may just be, improve pedestrian connections. This is the wordsmithing that we'll begin to do. But as subcommittees, think about that.
What is complete street?
Complete street is a street that has bike lanes, that has area, sidewalks, street trees, lights. It has all of the components that make sort of a comfortable, exciting street, and as well as vehicular. So right, we keep everything. Curbs, sidewalks. There's a lot of missing things in some of the streets in the Bridge District, and we're talking about these streets. Increased use and opportunities for, I'd say, car rentals, shares, support transit-oriented development, investigate opportunity for electric bus circular. I might like to wrap that one into, increase access to bus. And link to regional bike network, trail network, leverage Ferry Street Bridge improvements as part of DRI. And I think those are, and again, and that's where we're at. And I think they're going to become concise. I like that. There'll be more information put together in writing that will go into the appendix. But that's where we're at. Does anyone have any comments on this one? And again, we're pretty quick, but if there's something that feels like we're missing as we go through these, or if you think that we're changing words from the subcommittee, that's the big piece here. I always said it the last one, it's exciting that the subcommittees and the committees really created all of this. We're just pulling it together.
So the mayor chairs the committee. Christian, are you on that committee? Yes. Can you speak to this? Does it fit the bill for what you guys have been meeting on? And Friday you met with Nelson Nygaard, right? With your technical expertise? Right.
Yes, that's what we've been going over, is to create that safe, connected environment. So in the streetscape, and as well as the second street stairs tied in well with that as far as connectivity. So that is a good overview of what we're trying to do, yes.
Christian, is there physical parts to this, like a station or some type of office? If you're doing a ride share, is there a pickup spot? Is there lighting? Is there emergency call?
That was spoken. There may be a parking lot that we can develop to take place for that. So there's a public municipal parking lot that we're looking into for that to be the hub for that type of situation.
Did you talk about charging stations for cars in that parking lot?
We did as well, yes.
I don't see any reference.
I may have jumped over that. I think that it's,
As well as bringing in some of the services, car services that are available for rental, ride sharing, things along those lines.
that's exactly what this is about, making sure that's in. Thank you.
So, in hindsight, we might have done this slightly differently, where we talk about this and then look at the list of projects and see. But be curious if you could look at that list side by side with your strategies of the projects that are currently in the pipeline. From you, having looked at it, are there a lot that align with what they're looking at here? Is this a gap that we need to think about? Are we finding enough projects or developing enough projects that fit this list?
I think with transportation, there are quite a bit. And as you'll see, and in the meeting that took place on Friday with Nelson Nygaard, it was a joint, for those who attended, between waterfront and transportation. And it was, there's a lot of overlaps. And there's, from the infrastructure to the connectivity projects, I think there's quite a few, bus, transportation. So there could be more, but that's Matthew, a great point, because through this, we may ultimately, in early January, identify some holes that we need to be, that could be a scramble, making sure that the strategies that identified a need, that we don't have a project to support that. So but I think we're good.
And even if the electric bus doesn't come to fruition right away, a bus service will be put in place, whether, gas, propane, whatever it may be, that will be started, and then hopefully at the end, an electric bus will come.
Okay. So, Michael, this sort of goes to your question before, right? So as a group, or as an individual, looking at this list and looking at the projects that have come in and saying, okay, here's our strategy, here's our goals, are they lining up, right? And are we fitting in everything that we need to? So it's a perfect example of that.
Can I just have one suggestion, just in terms of thinking about the transportation issues that Bridge District residents face, connecting Amtrak, Bridge District, Warren Street, but really the surrounding areas also, like grocery stores and Columbia Green, which is consistent in the community college, which I would just add in other locations, just that it's not only within downtown and the city of Hudson, but that seems to me crucial.
That's in our
Like a long-term plan. It's good.
Going up Fairview, going up to Alon, going
and so on, so it has growth.
That's a good point.
Yes.
And Sarah, to a certain extent, that's part of what the community profile that we put together as the front part of this document will speak to that, right? We have a need to connect the Fairview Avenue, strip and Columbia Green with the downtown core, and this project will help facilitate things like that. So,
Employment opportunities. Great opportunity for training and employment of Hudson residents that provide for sustainable living wage occupations with the potential for advancement. I read that last week. We have strategies here. Prioritize projects that will provide high-quality, full-time living wage jobs with the potential for advancement. Prioritize projects with a commitment to providing job training and workforce development opportunities for Hudson residents. And again, prioritize the development of employment pathways for Hudson residents by creating a central workforce development hub in proximity to downtown Hudson, supporting and building connections between employers through some job training programs, addressing key gaps by expanding workforce training programs, developing incentives and opportunities for apprenticeships and on-the-job training. Two of my comments on these, which I would like to, as we work through these, some of these sub-strategies are solid strategies on their own. Another strategy that I think should be included that I didn't put in, but is identify opportunities to build opportunities into development initiatives. In other words, if something's happening, a project's being developed, what's happening on that first floor? If there may be an opportunity in addition to retail for a physical space to be created, and that might be, that's a strategy that I think should be included here, because I think that could work. And I think that's a way to use DRI funds in a job and employment opportunity way that really works, and that you can bring in the training, et cetera. And so, I would just like to add that, and I may, but I want to give the subcommittee that opportunity, to just, talk about that one.
So my thought on this particular goal and strategies, I like the dichotomy between the first two, prioritization of projects based on the goals of this particular subject area. But then the second set of strategies are more project-specific things, right? So you sort of got that overlay. The transportation stuff, it all bundles together, but there are a lot of distinct projects that you could pull out. There are almost too many to fit a $10 million, $9.7 million budget, right? But this one sort of gets at the question Sarah asked at the beginning, like what is that sort of standard checklist of things that overlay that we're going to put on top of projects at the same time as it's offering up projects. So I think, and then being that it's economic development, it's the right place for that to happen, right?
I can see that. So like I said, and again, some of these right here, I see as just core strategies too that we would use to measure the against. Any other comments? This is good. Food access. Increase access to healthy, affordable foods while creating living wage jobs and training opportunities in food-related businesses. Food business incubation. Support new food entrepreneurs, including micro-food businesses, through revolving loan fund and additional services, prioritizing current local residents and businesses owned by people of color. Support for existing food-related businesses to scale up. Create a shared use commercial kitchen for startup food businesses. Workforce development. Create opportunities for food-related workforce development, culinary skills training, kitchen apprenticeships, food service training, urban agriculture, etc. Retail space. Develop a local food distribution hub to increase access to healthy, locally produced, affordable, and culturally desired foods while supporting local farmers. Develop retail space for affordable prepared foods. Food court, shared use retail space, pop-up space for new food entrepreneurs. Transportation. Increase public transportation options to existing grocery stores and affordable food options. And food waste. Create systems for reclaiming food waste to generate renewable energy. And again, and everyone can kind of see, as each subcommittee sort of structured theirs a little bit different, and we'll work to make them more consistent across. A couple of my questions for the food access goal and strategies is a revolving loan fund. This may be better set as a grant opportunity. So again, I would change that question to just air loan and or grant fund opportunity. And there also, these may be likewise something that can tie into a physical, development opportunity. That might be a top-line strategy. So, food access should be a priority of a component of a development receiving DRI funding. Because that just provides support for both initiatives coming together. And I think it ties it together very well. And one thing is, affordable food comes in underneath each of these. I would have almost proposed, affordable food, increased access to affordable food could be a strong key strategy within this. Those are just some of my comments that I had, and would welcome any other ones from here. The structure I thought was very nice and how you pulled this together.
Did urban gardens fall off the page, those rooftop gardens to make food grown and accessible locally?
Wasn't in the.
I know I mentioned it.
Yeah.
I mentioned the fact that J-Bars is growing acres of plants on warehouse buildings in Long Island City. So I wonder if we're putting in multi-use developments here, could we be growing food where kids could come to learn to grow it and parents could take it home, or should be part of this incubation?
And that can fall under a, as part of, food access as part of development, encourage, support, agriculture, agri-farm.
Urban agriculture is mentioned in the last bullet.
We can pull it out.
Yeah.
I'm looking for it.
Michelle, is there anything else you want to add to this? Is there anything that this is missing or needs to be revised?
You talk about the retail, retail space. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right that maybe we should pull some of these things out of, like, a local food distribution hub. I don't know if that, I think it's more than just retail space, so maybe it could be, this could be regional.
Like I said, I've got my notes, and as I said, this all ultimately goes into the report. We'll finalize it on the 12th, so everyone has a chance to get back with the committee members, talk about it. But we're not far off where it's in right now.
Michelle, question there. We started with our public comment a few meetings ago with supermarket. This subcommittee seems more focused on transportation to local food, existing markets now. Was that the finding of your reading of the public, or is that kind of a trend away from the idea that that's not a feasible option within the Bridge District, and we're more looking at local foods and transportation to the existing food markets?
No, I don't think that's what, I think that we identified transportation to existing food outlets as one strategy, but definitely not. I mean, that's only, I think it's more tied to workforce development and job creation in the food industry, So, yeah, I mean, I think that was definitely not our intention to say that, that transportation to existing. I don't think that's.
Oh, no, I'm fine with transportation. I'm just trying to say, are we trending away from driving to the feasibility of a large market in the Bridge District, trending more towards transportation, and then also here, smaller retail, as you're stating, around locally produced, affordable, culturally desirable foods.
I mean, to be perfectly frank, I think it was the consultant team that was exploring the size of a supermarket or grocery store, and less of the community team that was exploring that. I think the community team was looking at a very diverse set of strategies and implementable actions, and the report that we got was focused on exactly what you brought up, a retail opportunity. I think the retail opportunity is one element. I don't think it's a single retail opportunity if you look at what we have here. And if you look at supply and surplus leakage analysis, there's millions of dollars of food sales that happen every single day about 1.5 miles, 2 miles from this location. Are we talking about displacing those, or are we talking about how do we integrate our community into making some access to those, as well as creating entrepreneurial and diversified implementable actions within the Bridge District?
Yeah, I think we were trying to say that, projects that address food access can be multifaceted and have other benefits beyond
A big box store.
Right.
Well,
it
I'm not
highlights
disagreeing
the-
with the committee's findings or the consultant's feasibility analysis. I just wanted to make sure that we don't ignore that was a big topic, so that they don't think we rushed it aside. It was looked at feasible-wise, it was looked at in terms of the impact, and we're moving towards this conclusion.
Well, as Larissa said as well, what was good and strong about her findings is that there's opportunity for, a retail that is, selling food. And I like that it's, we've got affordable, which was a big piece. So I thought this was a strong way, and, local, which was a big community priority as well. So I think this, combined with the likely argument and opportunity to be proven with the findings, makes it strong. All right. Waterfront. One connected waterfront with uninterrupted access extending from North Bay to South Bay. This one connected waterfront will generate new activities and attract residents and visitors alike, taking advantage of Hudson's historic waterfront, the river, and the extraordinary views beyond. Dunn Warehouse and adjacent property, preserve, restore, and enhance the Dunn Warehouse building and adjacent properties, including the ridge to the north, promote development of 2 or 3 complementary structures on the ridge north of the Dunn Warehouse, ensure viability by considering year-round farmers market, commercial kitchen, other public uses, create a public pier in order to maximize dockage, improve water access, and encourage more visitors by water. I added strengthen waterfront access, promote and enhance public access and meaningful interaction with the waterfront for pedestrians, boaters, bicycles, and vehicles, improve access for both land and water, build a continuous trail path along the river connecting the north and south bays, including Prominent Hill and River Park, improve connectivity to the waterfront with streetscape upgrades, corridor beautification, and green streets, connect where possible to CLC and propose Empire Trail, plans for North Bay Fergery to South Bay Basilica, relocate Water Street east of the Dunn Building, formerly Franklin Street. And again, waterfront 3, improve and beautify the Fergery site, restore at least one of the shacks, build a pedestrian connection between the Fergery site to North Bay and proposed CLC and Empire Trails, include wayfinding signage here with history, photo, board, develop and improve the 2nd Street steps, as well as widen the way to connect the north and south parts of the town in a bridge district loop, connect Tanner's Lane, the Wick Hotel, 2nd Street steps into a public square, improve the public parking near Hudson Boat Launch with planting, seating, etc., incorporate permeable paving and other green resilient infrastructure that can help mitigate or at least withstand periodic inundation. All really good, strong pieces to this. In some examples, I may recommend, getting a little bit out of this project specifics, because many of those projects are already being recommended in our actual projects. And so we not necessarily need to be in the strategy itself. But again, it's it's very strong. And the one other piece that I had, that uninterrupted focus in the goal, I think is something, that's clearly, coming from the subcommittee, a strong part of it, and can potentially be some, as we look into it. I will, for example, on the Fergery site, one of our team members is looking at just that. So it could just be improve and beautify the Fergery site as the final. We don't have to get into the details here in terms of what we're doing. That comes into the project itself.
That's what we've been talking about.
Right? Good. All right.
Dean?
Like I said, right? You don't have to meet before January 12th. I just wanted to give everyone a chance. If we're done, and I'll state any changes we make to this final, what goes into the report, as we make it more concise, we'll go back for approval by the planning subcommittees, without a doubt.
Well, I think to your point about being done before the 12th, we may be done with the goals and the strategies, but again, particularly with respect to waterfront, right, and transportation, that's 2 of the biggest groups, right, and a lot of stuff packed in there. And I haven't done my own cross-analysis of the list of projects against those, but we have to do that. It's become completely evident to me tonight that we have to make sure we do that, right? And so I think it's incumbent upon the subcommittees to meet after New Year's, after that list is handed down, to do your own analysis as a group. So I'm sort of changing as I go through this process what I said before. I think we should all still do it from our own individual lens, but from the subcommittee group, because you've got it in your head. So.
And you're saying cross-analysis to look for the gaps?
Yeah, to look for the gaps, absolutely, and the strengths.
And look where they reconcile with one another.
Right.
I think triangulation is really important.
Yeah.
The 2nd Street steps comes up in transportation, it comes up in waterfront. So there's
Perfect example.
And streetscaping, right, comes up in all of these, right? Livable communities we're about to hit is going to cover a lot of this stuff, right? So, yeah, I like triangulation is a great way to put it. Right?
I think that's, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Livable communities promote civic engagement, provide a sense of place through safe, sustainable choices for housing, transportation, education, cultural diversity, and enrichment and recreation. Prioritize mixed-use, mixed-income development. Focus on real opportunities from small to big wins across the Bridge District. Identify local needs and facilitate access to available public-private financing for homeowners and business owners. Increase not-for-profit partnerships to expand local capacity to deliver available resources. Mixed-use development should prioritize an active first floor and adjacent public realm. Increase the supply of quality rental housing available to residents at all income levels. Create support network for lower income residents by increasing access to supporting opportunities and information. prioritize adaptive reuse. Sustainable green building methods should be incorporated. Increase capacity of city to support management of DRI loan grant fund. Leverage historic tax credits, state and federal, still available, cross that out. Owner occupied tax credits. And again, just trying to clean these up. We welcome any input, but this is where we're at.
So I'm looking at what we sent around this morning, and it's different than what's up there. So this is the one slide that you've at least highlighted changes. So I want to make sure we get this
You got it.
the most current set out for everybody.
I will.
Right.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, this was just more as we're keep going through these.
Yeah, right.
I'll make one note, too, which I think is, again, strong, green building and green infrastructure in the waterfront, as an example. Which, and that's, to me, strong. That's been all of it good here.
I'm a little confused because originally there was the housing task force was described as being like task force / kind of subcommittee. This has some language around housing in it, and I'm just, yeah.
It's a very fair question. Yeah, the housing task force has been meeting. It's not part of the DRI, but it's tied into the DRI. We have included the areas, mixed income development, in here into the little communities, and that's across the entire bridge district. And so I think it works because this is how LPC's done this. How is it reflected in here? It's a question I'll put back to the planning committee.
So the livable communities is the goals that we came up with, the conversation we had, is that it was intended to be in large part an overlay that goes over a lot of what we look at, making sure that the project profiles meet some or all of these criteria to help further the overall improvement of the bridge district and the surrounding community. It's not in itself intended to drive specific projects, although there are some that may come out of this. Separately, I can report that the Housing Task Force does have 4 to 5 projects that are in the pipeline that will show up on the list tonight. Site preparation for some available sites for development, a rehab, a revolving loan fund or grant program. There's a couple of other things. So the Housing Task Force is on track to make sure that there are project-specific things in the project profile list.
So should there be strategies also?
From them?
Or, yeah, I don't know, that speak to the,
I think that there's enough synthesis between them. I don't know that we have to have a separate set because we sort of hit the issues across the spectrum here. I think we covered it. So like transit-oriented development, CAD site will include housing. There's various components that I think are all included. And if anybody else wants to add to that, feel free.
Yes. Is it a heretical idea to
Yes.
suggest in terms of this revised thought about having subcommittees meet again before the next full group meeting for the purpose of identifying these crossovers and synergy? And we're each meeting visually, so what if a couple of people from each subcommittee met all together and had that kind of working session with people attending that could then collectively, in a sense of efficiency, all meet and talk about and brainstorm those synergies rather than having each committee meet separately and then trying to brainstorm and bring to. I'm just thinking about it from an efficiency point of view and also from the idea that if our committee meets and then projects onto the good committee about what they think is connected, it may not be.
Yeah, true. Not heretical at all. I think it's I think it's a good idea actually. I mean,
Just to make it easier and, sort of like we keep having this larger thing we have to circulate around, so I am constantly wondering about it. Can we just cut to a corner and then get, like, Betsy's a lot smarter than I am, for example, so she could be on that committee from the waterfront, and she could sit and talk to you and Todd and get some of those things flushed out before our next meeting.
what does everybody think about that? When we have 5 committees, if we had 2 people from each, that's 10 people. It's a pretty manageable group, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's easier to manage.
Todd as well. So Todd has-
I thought I was in by default. I was in.
I had that comment to Brenda already.
I mean, listen, we're finding our way through this as we go, so
Yeah.
I think there's nothing radical about it. I think all of these ideas are good, and it's a little amorphous, but because we haven't done this before, so we're learning as we go.
Because
So,
those people then can come back to the subcommittee so that I would just feel like better prepared for this next meeting, because I don't know.
That's the key right there, feeling prepared.
yeah, for the January 23rd meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Right.
being a little nervous.
I mean, that's a common theme that's come up several times tonight.
So if that happened, and then there was an ability, because our subcommittee does a pretty good job of just emailing, circulating emails, everybody gets on the same page. The team, in our case, does a great job, that information goes out, I feel like I get a lot of homework. That would help. And so it's not like the other people in the subcommittees are left out, at least in my experience, it's just a way to kind of plow through this.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I mean, what I hope doesn't happen is that the balance of the LPC doesn't take that as an opportunity to not do their own homework and not review it as well. I hope everybody would give their fair share of feedback to Steve, even if it's not part of the subcommittee group. So I want to state that so that we all have our buy-in here. But what do other folks think about a group of 10 getting together and cross-synthesizing? Okay.
Or there could be more than one. I mean,
Well, then that's the 20 of us, and we'll just come and have another meeting, and we can do that too, right? So it's, right? Sorry,
I
Sarah.
think if the group of 10 is triangulated
Right.
with respect to the different committees, if two of those groups did that and came to similar conclusions, then I think feel pretty solid.
Yeah, although I think the one caution I throw is that I don't think that group session should be intended to prioritize as much as just find the balance and the synthesis between them. And then they'll bring those recommendations forward and we can all agree, does this prioritize the right way? Is there a gap? Is there a holistic, agreeable plan forward? Does that sit well with everybody? Okay. So why don't we strike while the iron is hot? So we've got our 5 work groups. I'm just going to go in random order. So transportation, 2 volunteers for transportation.
No, you volunteer if you want to hear.
Well, of course. Touche, Jen.
1, 2, 3, I got 10 people right here.
Don't grab my name.
Well, get up here. What are you doing back there? Come to the table.
Good, good.
Transportation, anybody?
Jeff here.
I don't know who's.
Jeff's on it, I'm on it, Christian's on it, Tiffany's on it.
So we're going to volunteer Tiffany because she's not here. That one's fine.
Tiffany and Jeff should probably take that.
Jeff Hunt?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So we'll follow that guidance on that one. How about food? Michelle? Todd's on livable communities. He's one of the few he can't.
I'll do it also.
Elena, are you on the food?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's Elaine and Michelle.
It's Elena and Michelle on food, and then I'll put myself on from livable communities with Todd. How's that sound, Todd? I'm cool with that. All right, good. All right, workforce? Mike? Anybody else? Who else is on that? Is Tinny on
He's
that?
on that, he's not here.
We're going to volunteer Tinny. He couldn't be here tonight because he had to present to his board. And what's our last group? Job creation?
Seth and Betsy.
No. It's what?
Seth and Betsy.
Waterfront.
What's your name?
Who is it? Seth and Betsy?
For waterfront.
Okay. All right, great. We'll regroup and we'll do a doodle or something and figure out a time to meet. Okay.
So that'll be between the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and
In the meantime, everybody will have gotten all of it, so every member of the LPC will have read it and given feedback to the 10, to someone on the 10,
Yes, everybody is still expected to give their individual feedback
and Steve.
to Steve. By the 16th, I believe is the deadline for that. We'll reinforce deadlines in the email, but yes.
I have one more comment before we move on, which is just going back a tiny bit to the renewable communities strategies. just finishing the thought that I was having, which is that at the first public engagement session, when housing was coming out from every table, and you were saying, I'm hearing a lot of affordability, I'm hearing affordable housing, and the language that we have in there right now is all around mixed income development, and I just want to make a plug for us to, because there's so much attention in this process around language, and us putting language that will, at some point further down the line, have impact now and further into the future, I would like to make a plug for putting the word affordable in relation to housing.
That's what we're designing affordability, that's what Mark was up here. And just as for...
But it isn't currently in our
So,
strategy.
affordable, yeah, so I put that to the subcommittee.
In the livable community?
I don't think so, it's,
Could you back up?
I thought it was.
I thought it was.
I thought it was too.
oh, sorry, I missed it. I saw mixed income development, and I thought that was there.
Primarily the mixed-use, mixed-income development. So,
Residential housing development for residents at all income levels, and we can put the word affordable in
That's, I'm
there.
just thinking about how much of this
That's fine.
process is focused on language and the ways that.
And a lot of the projects the task force is looking at do concentrate on affordable, so if we're overlaying with the task force, you're going to get
Yeah.
more affordable.
I believe in the mission statement of the DRI, it's not a DRI, I believe we made sure it was included in there as well, so. And listen, as the affordable housing guy at the table, we're not going to have an argument for being
Just wanted to get you guys there.
that's why we have these meetings.
Steve, on the local communities, though, there should be a sense that all the strategies can't go to every tier of housing, so we're looking at things from a one lot, one house to a 6 lot to an 8 lot to affordable to task force to housing. If you start trying to layer on, as Matt would say, prevailing wage, green priorities, tax credits, and all these things on these projects, you're going to make them very unattractive.
Yeah, it becomes more complex by
We
magnitude,
should have some
but
idea
yeah,
of magnitude on where we're layering these strategies.
right. Okay.
All right, just jumping, again, what I want to talk about, and we're about to jump into this spreadsheet. This is just a summary. This is a spreadsheet that you've seen. You're going to get a revised version tomorrow, and you can continue to add your comments into it. The reason I wanted to put up this summary slide just in the presentation, and I'm sorry for who is just not showing up in here. It's just green that's kind of popping up here. But right now, a couple things, a takeaway. This is preliminary, numbers change without a doubt. This is the information we've got in. These are the information, these numbers we've vetted for all of the projects. But if you just look at sort of the goals here, work, waterfront, transportation, livable communities, employment, food. And like I said, food's in here, I promise you. We've got a good, it's coming across, and you'll see it when we get into the specific project. The other piece is, right now, today, we're at $65 million of total project estimated cost with a total DRI ask in here of $13.6 million. Now again, that will all change as we go through this. More projects are coming in, so those numbers are going to get bigger. But what's interesting is we're already, pretty well in the ballpark. So just from the work that's been taking place so far, when you look at some of the DRI ones where they ended up, this is sort of a nice way to end here. I mean, we're getting closer and closer. Is where we're at. This will continue to change. What I have is a
Steve, may I ask a quick question
Sure.
on that side? On the far right column, it says identified owner. I
Yeah.
just want to, there's some TBDs here, like the Dunn Warehouse. When you use the word owner, would you just...
Let's clarify, who has the capacity, who is going to own this project going forward?
Okay,
And the reason why I put
that's what I thought.
TBD on the Dunn Warehouse, for example, city property, is the city own the project? And then the city gets it to the next stage. Is the city going to, shepherd it until and do an RFP, so that somebody's coming in? So I think we're going to get clarified. And this is not the best, and I've already been updating this as we look at it as well. So that again.
I was just a little confused about the TBDs, I wasn't sure.
Yep, no,
Thank you.
absolutely. We're still, this is the first time you've seen it. It'll get stronger and stronger and stronger as we go through.
Sorry, one other thing that crossed my mind before you move on to the individual sections. Is it possible to take each of these and put them on revised aerial map that shows
Yes.
how all these fit together? And can you do that for the distribution to us on the 5th?
Oh, easily by the 5th,
Okay.
possibly sooner.
think that would help visualize the synthesis from a physical standpoint of where it fits within the DRI boundaries.
That's actually, I know Phil's writing it down right now, that's something we could probably do and do a quick turnaround with a revised map that could go out, in the next couple of days. I think that's a great way of looking at it. Good idea. Okay. Now, the presentation that we put together, I've got it here, and I'm not going to show it. You've seen all of these. Some of them are new. You will all have access to this presentation to go through the details. This is what was presented to the community a week and a half ago. And for the community who's here, again, hudsondri.org, this presentation will be up. So this is, just consider this a resource, and all of them are in here, going through, organizing through these key areas of the public improvements, the new development and rehabilitation, each and every project. And again, the final one, as we look in the wayfinding, signage, grants, revolving loans, these other areas of how, Florida State constructed these. So all of this information is there. What I'd like to do right now is leave this presentation.
Well, can you pull that back up for just 1 second?
Yeah.
Sorry. So, when we get the full package of materials to say January 5th, for argument's sake, right?
Yep.
So we'll have the spreadsheet, that was that first slide.
Yes.
We'll have a map as just discussed. And then we'll have all of these project profiles like this in some version.
Yeah, in fact, you won't have what is in this presentation is summarized with not all of the details of what was presented at the public meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, there's more details. We just synthesized on this in here. So what you will have on that is a Word document with the project profiles as required by the Florida State and all the information. And when there's holes, it'll be highlighted as a missing piece of information.
Okay.
And so that'll be a Word document that you will be able to comment on.
So everybody will get that same.
Everybody will get
that data, and that will have breakdown of cost, total project development cost, as well as the requested amount, and then other subsidy sources as.
Other subsidy sources as they've been identified and where they haven't. And that'll be a little bit more of a working planning committee, because there's some cases where we need to identify money. And that's important. So.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Well, just on that point, so there's like a scrub that the experts look at. So one thing that just jumps out, I'm looking at this CAS thing, it's $25 million, and the allotment is $675. And so I'm guessing that part of what help we get from you folks is to say, well, when we look at this relative to the cost, these things are 100%, that one huge spread, so it's kind of hard to have a reaction to that, or stand behind that, or prioritize that when we think, wow.
I think the CAS site is a great example of, again, there was that was in the makings with an RFP, beginning to go out. That number was put in there. Based on the decision being made, and Sheena, I know you're right there, and they're working to make a decision, that number could change, I would say, dramatically, because
for DRI
for the overall size of the project and the DRI contribution, and also how that one may tie into public infrastructure occurring within that area. So maybe there's a real, we're doing this here, that allows us to do this, we form together. So it's a good example of one that we all need to be focused on very quickly once the decision is made. And again, and that's, WZHJ sort of with on our team is involved seeing, understanding, and working on that. That's in her job is for really looking at the catalytic developments and basically from a developer's perspective, making sure that this is the appropriate amount, and that's critical. And she essentially says to us, they can't do it unless,
right.
And we got to,
That's what I mean. Okay.
Okay. And Phil, did you put this? It's right here. Yeah. All right, we're going to start with public improvements. And actually, yeah, and what Phil's going to, why don't you get it up? I'm hoping this is going to become large enough. Yeah, we're going to blow it up. But if we can't read it,
to point towards the top of your page, so that'll give it it's got that right there. And then the one above it.
That's fast. Okay, we're just gonna start right here. Let's see how this works right now, and I can read community again. We have a public pier on Hudson River. Just a quick description of what that is from much of these are either from the profile, from the original submittal, or what's coming in. That's self-explanatory. Right now, we've got essentially a total project cost we don't know, and but a DRI request for the submittal of $1.2 million. Looking at this, the waterfront clearly. Livable communities, transportation, probably as we just discussed on Friday, and how that pier may, allow people to access from water, that probably becomes transportation. It's not employee, not necessarily food. What we need to look at, this is what I just want to get to, this is what we're doing right now, is, we're EDR, Environmental Design Research, they're identifying the next steps, the project timeline. And and looking at what this concession design is. Sloop Club, as the primary owner, that came in as part of the project profile. We need to understand that capacity. Is this potentially multiple owners, a city project, or potential to tie into a larger development opportunity? And that was just a comment that was made from WZHA and our team that if there is a large-scale development, if there's a capacity that comes with a private entity that can then gift this into the community, that's just something that is an idea that we want to potentially look at. Again, our goals right now are trying to make sure capacity is there to get a project done and the right person's in place. And as I said a couple times, any comments from the committee right now will be helpful. You'll also have a opportunity this week to go through these individually and send back to the planning team. But, and I just, we pulled these from the board put together. There's no reason why this one's at the top of the list. It's not, there's no prioritization.
Steve, when you're assessing the capacity of the primary owners, you're in conversation with them?
Looking at their, yes. I mean, that's coming. Yeah, that's so, what is your financing? Can you secure funding? What is your experience with this?
Right. But just so to do that, are you in conversation with them, or are you looking at other things out?
Once they're all done, we're going to pull them together, and WZHA is, there's already some that have been in there, with Basilica, with the CAS, the WZHA have already identified, so you need to be in touch with them. Other ones, it may be EDR, it's more of a landscape type project. If there's a cost estimating, it's Miller group. And again, there's other areas, so different entities will come into the team. So.
Also, not totally clear on, when you're looking at the financial feasibility, you said that, if someone has a grant identified that's possible for 2018, that's not good enough. You want to see something more solid than that?
Yes. It's, if you think about, we can't make you can't go to a bank with an application that hasn't come out. Maybe that's a better way of looking at it. Can you take this to the bank? Do you have the credentials? That's, or is there a partner that needs to join in with you that can do that? That's exactly, the waterfront, the reason we're talking about that is, if you had a developer, with the funding can almost go through it. It's a benefit to their projects. And there's probably a stretch with this one, but it's an idea that Sarah Woodward just wanted to quickly look into. But that's a way that then, we want to find out who can get it done. The city can't and shouldn't do every single project. Developers can take on what their piece is. They can even potentially do streetscape work right in front of their project.
Just clarify that, just like if there's a good project, a strong potential or potential grant in 2018 when they seem lined up for it, that shouldn't just be discounted, right?
No, it should be in, but would the Department of State fund a project without the funding? Would it be a priority project if there was just...
I'm going to interrupt, I'm sorry. Like I say, 8 projects again in Glens Falls, but they don't have all the funding in place. They have potential funding in place. So I don't want to be that hard and fast that something should just be discounted because there's a potential application or a potential loan fund. Because I'm looking at projects now that do not have all the funding in place, and they were selected with DRI.
Okay.
So it's contrary to what I'm doing.
It isn't, because I think you probably look at it in the context of capacity. They've had the capacity to deliver it on level 4. find funding at that level before to execute a project at that scale.
Yes, it's
Steve, if we identify multiple owners or don't identify one particular owner for these bigger things like pier or CAS, are we allowed to, or does the state look okay upon us doing more planning and or zoning and or staging for the project with our money versus trying to identify the total cost of the developer, such as this? This could be a very large.
Well, I'm going to let either Sarah or behind you. I think an example might be if there's a larger project, that there could be a first phase of it that can clearly be identified and gets you to the next step. I think would be a strong, way of presenting a project, as opposed to a larger project that's not there. Again, and I've got Sarah. Again, I mean, they make the real decisions here. But we've been really given, particularly over exactly. So we need to be focused.
Be clear that it's not, that the decisions come from the committee and from the governor's office. We assist with evaluating, but we really do have to see what the whole package looks like. I think Mike has a point that, all the funding won't be in place for all of the projects, and the larger projects is, it's unrealistic to think that they'll be, say, for CAS, $25 million in place right away, but if there's, I mean, in that sort of situation, we want to see at least phasing and have be confident that the project will go forward. So, I mean, if it's a pie in the sky, well, if we hit the lottery and we get this DRI money, that's a non-starter. But we want to see projects that are ready to go. Some may have all the funding. If there are some gaps, it can be with a realistic chance of getting filled in another way. That's also, I mean, that doesn't put it out of the running.
So a confidence level.
Yes.
That's a good
And that's sort of, I mean, that's why we wanted in this round, the process to sort of explore the project in even more detail than in round one, so that when we get to that point, whether or not all of the money is there, at least we have a very, projects are framed out. We have a pretty high level of confidence that we know what the cost of the projects are, cost, time frame, and the potential sources of funding.
And so, again, with the pier, permitting all the issues with getting into the water, the environmental side, that's what they're looking at right now too. So that can become a chunk of what needs to go first.
So Steve, this is an example of one line on this chart. This is what you're going to send out as part of the package on the 5th, right? So
yeah, on the 5th, we'll have more information into this spreadsheet.
Right.
Again, could even do something as high level as the strategies. What we're going to probably add into this, probably on the 5th, but we'll be moving quickly into it, is how feasible is, maybe confidence might be a better way of putting it, but the ability for achievement within this. I think it's important. I think it's important to know because there's, again, a lot of really good ideas in here. We're not entirely sure. We still have more work to do. But just because someone submits a project doesn't make it a project.
Right. So in that vein, you're still collecting projects for another 2 weeks, right? You're going to be rounding out this document in a lot of ways, adding projects, adding the detail, setting that out to us to look at both as the working group that we've identified as 10, as well as individually. So we're not going to go through this whole thing tonight, right? We're just looking at this as a...
Yeah, I mean, I was going to go through, I set aside more of the meeting to go through this. Let me talk about, maybe it's best I can run through this whole piece on what we're looking at right now and an update at that point. And then we can talk broadly. That would be fairly quick. And looking at the clock probably makes sense.
Yeah, I think...
Let me do that, and and it'll be real quick.
Can I just ask one question before we leave this one? Who set, if we don't know who the owner is, if we don't know what the total development cost is, who set the number at 1.2, and what does the 1.2 buy, and do we need to know that?
We need to then figure out, it's put into as an estimate from the, based on just information that they were gathering at the time. EDR is who we are now, we've identified, because of the priority of that from the community, I just said this is an issue, they can do it, so that's become part of their scope to look at that.
So the city is the owner, right? The city is the one who came forward and said 1.2 million as an estimate.
Yeah, they did working together. So again, but these are estimates, and that's what so I want to just emphasize what we're looking at.
I'm just wondering, again, if you're evaluating capacity, you need to know certain things in order to evaluate capacity.
Right, which is why I think it's a little premature for us to go through this, because I think these guys need to do their homework and weigh it out a little bit more, right? I don't
Well,
wanna give-
also, there'll be much more substantial applications after January.
Right.
Well, right, that's exactly right. That's why I didn't want to go down a rabbit hole talking about individual parts of individual projects at this point, because I'm not sure we're prepared to do that.
Well, I'll be willing to, without a doubt. I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. There's, what I was hoping, and then the committee can actually, if you want to just go through this, we'll send it out tomorrow. There may be areas where planning committee members can identify ways to get some additional information. Because I think for many of these projects, we don't have that much information. Is from a concern on our end. And so that might be a better way to do
Well, you
it.
have to go third, because every project will have to have a project request.
In theory. But that's easier said than done. I just want to give everybody a warning.
But to kind of put some perspective on this, you have two big projects, has and done. Both of them don't have an identified owner, and they may not have an identified owner for a while, but they're not necessarily eliminated as viable projects that this program will stand on, even without that. There's a way to identify their viability with a potential owner, owner not yet identified.
And to Mike's point, as well, I mean, we could identify a project that doesn't have its owner, but is so critical that it becomes a priority project.
Can you change it from owner to sponsor? Or you have a project sponsor of the city? I mean, does that clarify more? I mean, the owner will be developed, like right now, it's owned by the city.
Yeah, owner of the, who's taking this, who is leading this project forward?
We used contracting entity with the other DRIs.
Contracting entities, to contracting entities.
The point is that you don't know that yet. You may not know that in 2 months.
Are you doubtful that we're going to get all the project information forms, period, or just that we're going to get them by January 3rd?
The goal, I mean, the deadline is January 3rd. I guess my comment, for anyone who's gone through and looked at that form to fill it out successfully and completely, I do think, some will have challenges. And maybe that's very helpful in the sense that if you can't complete the form, if you don't have access to that information, you don't have that yet, that may indicate where this project is in terms of a feasibility standpoint. But like I said, I think that'd be great if the committee's willing to go through this. I'm willing to take a pause and get that information back.
You mean, go through this, you mean separate of this meeting?
Separate of this
Get
meeting.
this document, go through it, look at it.
Send it. I mean, this document's a little bit different than what you've seen because we've got, again, for each of these projects, as we're just looking at it, each of these, we've got all of our issues of what, Stantec's doing right now, and then, this one's the promenade, cost prohibitive on trying to get a bridge over Amtrak down to the parking lot. There's certain areas where we're already making recommendations that, we think is where we should go, and so we're just trying to, but again, right next to it, I want the, LPC to provide their comments to, again, you're weighing in on these too.
Right, so I guess my reaction to the request of us going through it is that we're not the project applicants. We're supposed to help review and weigh these, right, and prioritize them. If you have missing information from the city of Hudson, for example, on a project that they said we want to get 1.2 million, I think at this stage, you should be going back to them and saying, here's our analysis, here are the gaps, here's what you guys need to give us by the 5th of January. So that the set of data that we get on the 5th for our work includes that, or if it doesn't, it's clearly highlighted that, hey, this was a project priority for the city of Hudson's DRI, but somebody's not giving the information that's necessary. So, hey, LPC, you got to figure it out. At that point, I think we can help drive that. I just don't think unless any one of us works for an entity that is one of the project applicants, I couldn't tell you any more information about this here.
Okay.
I can't. So I don't know. Right? So, and I don't know if anybody agrees or disagrees with that, but I just don't want to put us in a compromising position for the next 10 days that we can't answer questions and you're expecting us to fill holes.
Well, then what I hear from you is I will send you the holes that we've got and highlight them. So
when you send this to
when we
us
send
post January 3rd,
Post January 3rd.
highlighting that, hey, this was a community priority, a city priority, but it's not complete enough at this stage, based on our analysis as experts, to advance it further until some of these questions get answered. And then between then and the 23rd, it's incumbent upon the applicant who put that in to come up with those answers.
And we'll be in touch with all of the ones right away where we're at, and that's easy. There aren't that many, essentially, who's looking at this stuff. And we can do that.
I think our goal, our work as a committee between now and then is to help encourage anybody who hasn't yet submitted an application to get your application or your project profile in, so that you have as robust a list for January 3rd as you can have, right? Does anybody disagree with that? No.
And then I will just emphasize for every committee member as well, read the project form, understand everything that they need to get together, and make sure that you may be available to either help them or send, get in touch with us to see if we can help.
So to reiterate, tomorrow you're available.
I'm here.
9 to 1 for everybody. And then after tomorrow, for the balance of this work week, you're available, you're just not available next week?
I'm not available next week, I'm here all this entire week.
Okay.
And focused on this.
Okay.
I'm not going anywhere.
But you're not physically here?
I'm not physically in
So
Hudson.
Thursday, Friday, email or phone?
Phone, email,
Okay.
without a doubt.
Got it. Are we square on that? Is everybody in agreement?
Yes.
I think we also just need to be aware that a deadline's a deadline, and as many as you have in now, you could easily have that many in close of business January 3rd.
Yes,
So,
right.
I mean, knowing human nature and knowing the nature of projects.
Yeah.
Well, then I will also,
I'm just saying, that's the reality of it, and we all, I mean, as much homework as we can do right now, just be prepared that deadlines are what people respond to, not, 2 weeks before deadlines.
Right.
Is there any way, just because, so all of this is operating on the same timeline, January 3rd, what we're going to be able to review after that. I'm curious about CAD, which is such a significant line item and has its own thing going on, the RFP going out, the proposals coming in, and what the timeline is for that, what the local planning committee and the public will see when for that.
So they're in their process of reviewing the responses to the RFP, and do you want to speak to it?
Yeah, if you want to, it's your choice.
No, I'm happy to defer.
So far, the review committee of the HDC has interviewed the first 2 consultants. Great interviews. There's 2 remaining that have to be interviewed. The scheduled interview is anticipated for January 12th, and that they will have 2 more interviews. In between those 2, we'll be vetting the first 2, i.e. going to see the existing projects that they've had, go looking at what they're doing, what's in the process, what they've done in terms of historic rehab, in terms of what the consistency of their project is to their capital stack, looking at their financial information to see if they're capable of doing a project of this size. So that's sort of the HDC's initial scrub of this. And then, so we'll have our January 12th, where we'll go and meet with the second group of consultants and do the same thing. It'll probably be till the end of January, where we'll be going through that. And our final HDC board meeting, which is our intended timeline, is to have a recommendation to the board on the preferred consultant for this.
You don't mean consultant, you mean
Developer, partner, the partner on this project. So that's our first step to this. And
And Sheena, presumably in that, the DRI requested funds would be sort of a component of all of that
So
analysis.
originally, when we were writing the application, I knew that HDC was going to be going on this RFP process with or without DRI. We didn't intend to win the DRI. We were like, ooh, let's do it. But we won, and that's awesome. But we were always going to do this. And as part of our review of their projects, we've asked each consultant, can you do your project without DRI funds? That's number 1, because this, as wonderful as this is, wasn't a part of our original conception of how this project was going to come together. We understand that there are other incentives and programs and projects for housing, for main streets, for development, for economic development. Every developer who works in the area knows about those things as well. So their capital stack is going to exist of certain financing all along. The DRI is another component, which is just, we're trying to figure out how to manage that and we're integrate this more fully. So back to me writing the application, when we were putting the application together, I wrote in $675,000 to go towards a transportation-oriented development, which this project still effectively is. So it is a development which includes retail, commercial, and housing. So we're trying to meet all of the needs of the community where we can, but allow the developer some level of creativity, and for them to be able to do their job. They are the developer, and they are investing somewhere between 20 and 30 million of their own dollars. So being conscious of all that, we're moving through this process methodically and slowly, but trying to keep in track with what you are all doing here as well. So what that final ask is, to Seth's point, is a difficult one to enumerate. I don't want to speak too much to what's going on in terms of what the proposals are, but we're seeing combinations of public, private, and we're seeing, housing, commercial, retail, and what, levels of those are in each proposal are different. So what that means in terms of the DRI project is going to be different in terms of the ask. So it's hard for us right now to figure out what that numerical value is when and how to allow this group to vet. So we had thought perhaps allowing some way for you to ask pertinent questions to your process. So as part of your review process, what are the things that you would want to know from a developer, from a preferred partner in this process? So they're going to get in range with the City of Hudson, its administration, its agencies, and its community. What are the things that you would like to know from your point of view as the LPC when vetting potential candidates? And ideally, we could get those questions back in written form from our consultants, because they all know that this is happening, and they're aware that they're going to have to become a community partner to this group and to the larger City of Hudson. Everyone is fully aware of that. So, how and the best way to integrate that without it being cumbersome for everyone and an additional layer of review meetings and et cetera is something we've been trying to come to grips with. So that's where we are right now. We anticipate reviewing this vetting process through the month of January, and at the end of it coming out with a preferred partner. That's where we are right now. That doesn't mean it's the final partner. That doesn't mean we've signed, sealed, and delivered the project to them. It's where we are in terms of coming up with its preferred partner. Does that answer your question?
And also, isn't it the case that going through this scrum to identify a preferred partner and their initial kind of proposals and ideas doesn't necessarily mean if they become the preferred partner that that's set in stone, that there can be some synergy with, for example, this whole community effort and the DRI committee and the community at large to say, well, you envision this, that's near, but we have this other input. And if you want some of the DRI money, we need to collaborate. And it's not that the choice of that preferred partner, it's like the vetting of the preferred partner doesn't mean it defines in stone the project. Okay.
That's what I was trying
Right. I mean, you're doing a scrub about their viability and ability.
Can they do the project? Can they deliver the project on time, on budget, and a project that we can all be satisfied with? So it's a difficult task right there to come up with a project.
So that was my question earlier. Let's say we identify 8 projects and they're awarded, and for some reason, one of them can't deliver on that project. Will it default to someone else that was on the pick as part of the project recommendation? What happens?
It's we're going to identify more than the other amount of money, right? Then the Department of State is going to select projects. And Sarah, help me add to this list. Yeah, if after the DRI first round, if a selected project is then later deemed not feasible, does the state come back and choose another one?
In theory, that is how it would work. We haven't gotten to that point in DRI 1 so far. All the projects are moving forward. But there's always the potential for something to change, or a project to maybe find other sources of funding. Maybe it does move forward, but it doesn't need the DRI anymore, the DRI piece. So that is why we ask for more than $10 million worth of projects, so that there's a backup.
It's important to have a strong bench.
Yes, that's the best answer.
Right.
We need to have as many strong projects as we can.
And it also sets the stage, in addition to making sure that we're able to spend $10 million in Hudson of DRI funding, it also sets the stage for other positions, for other grant sources.
And on that, I'm looking at the clock, and we always allow the community to speak. I saw one hand already go up. So I'll take a few minutes from the community, anyone who has any comments, and then we can close the meeting. I think you know your homework assignments at this phase, so.
Can you talk a little bit about HDC goals, if there are any, for affordable housing in the town's development, and how that has gone into your, or will go into your vetting of developers?
The RFP does not include any goal for affordable housing as it's defined by AMI or HUD standards.
Two questions. Earlier, at one of the earlier meetings, you spoke about the potential of an online survey being available either with a smartphone.
Yes, as we come together with these lists and through a smartphone, yes. And again, we are planning on doing that once this is completed, and that will be a January event.
And lastly, will that spreadsheet be available on the HDC?
That spreadsheet is not available yet. It'll be available to the planning committee. Reason being is, and I'd be the first to say, I found 2 or 3 mistakes on it on my way up today, and it's not ready to go out yet. And also, you know, the spreadsheet that we pulled together, it represents everything that